All right, we have a kind of a busy evening ahead of us. I'd like to welcome the school committee, Barb. Welcome. Lisa Blake Davis, the school superintendent, and Greg Bueno this evening to help us through this process with this school budget. Now, I'd like to, just before we get started, I'd like to, can we have a motion to waive the minutes?
I'll make a motion to waive the minutes.
Second.
A motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, to waive the reading of the minutes. All those in favor, signify in the usual manner. Jeff Noble's an aye.
Aye.
Karen Schmidt's an aye.
Aye.
Kara is an aye. Mike Jerome's an aye, and Susan Carol Lombardi is an aye. That is unanimous, thank you. All right, let's kind of dive into the school budget. Just to let you know, tonight we will vote on the budget tonight. Just to let you know, but it probably won't be while you're here, because I know you have to run off to another meeting. And actually, we're going to have the police chief right after. So to try to squeeze everything in, plus we have a fairly sizable list of budgets to go over. So it's we're cramming a lot together here this evening. So first thing is, would you like to give us a presentation and then we can ask some questions? If that would be, whichever one of you would like to go ahead and do that, we'd appreciate it. Looks like some screens froze. Looks like all of them have frozen. Is everyone back? I have an internet connection.
It's reconnecting.
Mike.
I've had to use
Mike.
the hotspot and I lost it.
Okay.
I lost the hotspot. I don't have any connection to AT&T. Let's see if I can grab. Do we have, by any chance, the Wi-Fi password for here?
No.
It's out there. Could you grab it for me? It's out on the wall out there somewhere. It's trying to reconnect now, but it's not going to. COA. I got COA private and COA public. Let's try public. See if it's fast enough. I don't know why I lost my hotspot. That's the first time that's done that. Technology is wonderful until it doesn't go well. Last time I tried to connect with the COA hotspot, I wasn't able to get it to connect to the internet.
Oh, wow.
You see over on the side there?
Yeah.
It's just not connected to the internet.
Right.
For whatever reason, I could not get it to connect to the internet. I see the AT&T is back, but boy, is it a lousy signal. Hi, Sandy. Yeah, we lost the internet connection is what happened. Yeah, and my AT&T hotspot is not giving me internet, nor is the COA giving me internet. This is the problem. Yeah, don't put your cables here. I don't think he's, are you broadcasting over the internet live?
We're broadcasting live, yes.
What are you broadcasting over?
It's in here.
Oh, Spectrum, okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
it's not watching.
okay.
Really.
Yeah, let me see if I can get back on this one. They're using the Spectrum, there it is.
Yeah, we're plugged right in there. Thing.
Well, the COA just came up full. COA had just a minimum signal, and then all of a sudden it came up full signal. Still not a signal. this is the problem I had 2 weeks ago. Because my Wi-Fi hotspot kicked out on me. This is insane. This is insane, Sandy, yeah, well, that's why I want that computer budget up. Get technology and spend some money on it. Yeah. Oh, good. That movie told me all about it, okay. All right. Okay, well, we're gonna keep trying it here, and hopefully we'll get it. Right now, I'm on the COA, I was on the COA network, but it's not giving me internet connection. It's letting me on the network, but it's not giving me the internet, for whatever reason. Okay, so connected, secured, and we should come back on. I'm already kind of there. I'm already. Browser, let's try it. Oh no, it just threw me out to the browser. We're connecting to you. Well, 2 weeks in a row. What's that? Yeah. Let's.
Try to do the WPS and I don't know what the password is.
It's not, now I'm going to type blessed Linda. That would be cool, but I don't have a tool for it. So this is it's doing so many things now, I have no clue what it's even trying to do. That's what's gonna happen next week, but it's driving me crazy. Email, it's right there. I just type that in. EID, where are you? EID. I just told her to do that. There, we're back in. Okay, now we're back in. Yeah. It says Town of Dalton, I'm gonna still be Dalton. Can you hear me? It says connecting to, it says, yeah. It just, yep, it just turned me over to host now. Okay, I think we're back on and running.
Okay.
All right. I can now hear you. Hopefully we'll keep an internet connection here. It's technology. I love technology, but all right. Okay, let's see if we can try this again with your presentation. If you can get.
So,
yes.
Can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you.
Okay, awesome. So I just wanted to, say it's really important to us that we're accessible and that we answer your questions. We do understand that on multiple levels, this is a challenging year. It's been a challenging year because of the pandemic. It's challenging, I think, in a lot of ways for our families and our community. And we have tried really hard to be cognizant of that as we put together this budget. And we're also very, aware as we as we think about the budget of the kinds of supports that our students are going to need moving forward. So those are big priorities for us, and just, you know, thinking about how we're going to support our students and our student learning on different levels and really meeting them where they are, and, you know, moving from a point of strength. We definitely have some real strengths with our students, and we're proud of the work that our students have done. We couldn't have done it without our families. We couldn't have done it without you and our community. So I just wanted to say that that's kind of where we are. And again, like, we're pleased to be here. And, you know, I'm going to turn some of some of it over to Greg Bueno, who's our Director of Finance and Operations. And, you know, like I said, please, if we don't answer your questions, I know you said you're voting tonight, but we are always available, and we do want you to have your questions answered. We realize how important that is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Am I able to share my screen? I don't have a presentation per se, but I was going to share some of the slides.
Okay, go ahead and try it. Go ahead and try it, and I will.
Yeah, it still says disabled.
Okay, let me.
So hover over Greg's to the right there, and you should
there
pick
it
up
is.
a button that says more, I think.
Yeah, I just.
If you allow him to be the host, he can share.
Which go to security,
Okay, security.
and then I'll allow share screen.
Share screen. Okay, give that a try, Greg. Should be able to.
Not yet.
Not yet. Advanced
It's not like I
share.
can just talk about it.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me hear your
All
voice.
the participants can share simultaneously. I pushed that. Check that one. Can share one can share at a time. I pushed all the buttons.
Okay.
I got all the buttons pushed. Oh,
I
my
got it.
All of a sudden, it's going to blow up on us. All right. All right, here we
All
go.
right, can you see this is
Here we go.
the revenue slide from our budget. We'll start here and then we'll go to the assessments next. I just want to show you where some of the revenue changes this year. There were a couple of big ones. For instance, our Chapter 71 transportation, that is from the state. That was decreased this year. Two reasons. When the state's looking for money, that's the first place they look, is the Chapter 71, so that was lowered for that. But also last year, we only had buses on the road from September through the beginning of March. So even though we did have some costs March through June, those were not reimbursable. So the year was shorter and the percentage of reimbursement was lower. So we saw a decrease in our Chapter 71 aid. However, the savings we had from not paying the buses their 100% costs from March through June, we had extra money at the end of the year, so we were able to put more money into our transportation revolving account. So we had, we initially planned to have $300,000 to offset the budget this year. We had an additional $300,000, so we were able to put $600 to offset next year's budget. That's where you see that increase. We have been going down from 450 to 400 to 350. We do have an increase this year, and that was due to the savings from the bus contract. The other big one here that's a change year over year is we are using $200,000 from school choice. We do have a healthy school choice account currently, and we figured this is a perfect time to start using that. However, the one thing we do want to be aware of is school choice is going to be very tight in the district for at least the next couple, 5 or 6 years, due to the high school being at max capacity. So normally year over year, we're taking in at least maybe between 10 and 15 ninth graders from surrounding towns. For the high school, our school choice is closed 7th through 12th due to the max capacity at the high school. So that school choice fund is not going to be increasing as quickly as it has in the past, but that's just something to be aware of. But we are using $200,000 to offset next year's budget. Any questions on this slide for the revenue? If not, I'll go right over to the assessments.
Good question. What
Yes.
is the reimbursement from the state on transportation at this point?
At this point, we don't know for next year. I'm thinking right around 60%.
Okay, thank you.
But the same thing's going to happen for next year because we were remote. Anytime we're completely remote, those are non-reimbursable.
Right.
So if the percentage might go down, but also the amount we can put in for reimbursements going down as well. So
Thank you.
Yep. All right, so this is the assessment slide. This year, overall, we're seeing a 0.41 increase year over year. That's a variance of 66,728. The town of Dalton is seeing a 0.57 increase, or 48,432. I just want to, these assessments have not been voted on by school committee. I don't know if you're aware, a couple weeks ago, we were hoping to, we received an ESSER 2 grant. Originally, the state said we could use some of that money to offset any towns that the required local contribution increased. So we went through all the steps we needed to do. The towns voted on that. We let the state know. When I checked with them late last week, if we had any more things we had to do, they notified me that that's probably not going to pass through the state's budget. So they suggested we take it out, and then if it does pass, we can always put it back in or do something along those lines. But for the time being, they suggested take it out as revenue. So these town assessments are a little different than what if you saw the school committee meeting at the beginning of March or checked on our website. As of Thursday night, these will be the ones that are voted on by the school committee, and I'll throw it up on the website. But I want to show you guys the correct ones tonight. But like I said, Dalton is currently at $8,584,749, and has a variance of 48,432. This year, for the actual operating budget, go to that slide. We did not have many increases. We had no new positions. We had no new curriculum we needed to purchase, but we did have some, if you look at this column, this is the changeover adopted year over year. We did have some positions we did not fill, so we went down by an administrator at the middle school. We went down by 2 teaching staff, one at the middle school and one at the elementary school. That's due to class sizes, so it wasn't, the class sizes moving up are getting smaller, so we didn't need those teachers. And then we also went down to a 0.6 assistant superintendent, so we did see some savings there. The only thing I want to point out on this screen is if you see there's some big ones. The special ed line and the guidance lines, those ones have large changes. That is just a reallocation of staff. I moved our school adjustment counselors from guidance to special ed. So it's just a movement of those staff members. But like I said, year over year, we did not have any new positions this year in the budget. Do we have any questions on the individual lines where I can bounce back to the assessments?
Yeah, just,
Or I can go to something else.
just something real quick on the special ed. So, just judging by what I'm seeing, it seems like the special ed is going down. Am I reading that correctly?
No, it's like an increase.
Special ed is year over year. It's not going down. It's
Okay.
we moved our school adjustment counselors to special ed, but any expenses, I'm trying to think in my head right now if we did not go down in any line items in special ed.
Okay. Well, just while
The
we're
other
on,
thing is to note, which I didn't say, and I forgot, and I just remembered when you said that, we also went down by a 0.5 guidance counselor at the high school.
okay.
So that's why that 324,000 is bigger than what's being moved to special ed.
Okay, well, here, one of our members, and they brought this question to me, the special ed, they had done, kind of looked out at some of the previous budgeting that has taken place over the years, back to 2018. And it's something that kind of stood out a little bit, is that from 2018 to what the estimated budget was going to be this year, or for 2021, the special ed amount or category has not been spent out. The highest was in 2020, and it was a little over $2 million, $2.1 million was spent out of that budget. So, at the end of the year, they looked at the actuals, and the question lies with the budget is continuing to increase, but it doesn't appear from the document. It doesn't appear from the documentation that we're seeing that the budget is being utilized. So that's the question.
And I can look at those. I did not think of that question tonight. The actuals. I trying to think off the top of my head. With special ed, the two things that do change year over year are the tuitioned out students and the transportation. Those are the ones we kind of have to go in a ballpark. Sometimes with the transportation, kids are moving in and out of outplace schools. So we have to pretty much budget for that transportation if we have to bring those kids there. Sometimes we don't need to transport. So that's the only place in the special ed line that really isn't, what's the word I'm looking for? We don't know the definite when we're budgeting, the transportation. But I will note, I believe it was last year, so we're in the FY21 budget, we did increase special ed by $250,000. That was a big year in FY21, and that was due to, we had many, I want to say at least 3 students move in to one of our 7 district towns. They were already in an outplaced school. We just got the bill and we had to pay the bill. We did not have a say in where those students went, so that is why you saw an increase, at least in the budgeted amount year over year for special ed. But like I said, I can figure out I can come up with a document and share it with you for the actuals the last couple of years. That way I can always come back and discuss that.
Okay, Karen Schmidt has a question for you.
Sure.
Greg, regarding the special ed, when you do look at it, basically my concern is the cost of it being like I'm kind of looking at like $300,000 more than maybe what might not be needed. I'm not very good at this, so excuse me. But maybe next year, or in the next budget year 2023, could you just take time to look at the actuals compared to the budget and just kind of take
Well, I will definitely, yes, of course.
and just see, because the surpluses over the years to me have been very exuberant. And of course, when there's surpluses, I like to, to know where it goes back to. But that's another question, probably that'll come up a little later. But just, if you could just look at that, I'd really appreciate
I believe, yes,
that.
I can definitely do that. That's not an issue.
All right, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Karen.
All right, I guess we can move on.
I've got a quick question.
Yes,
Sorry.
please.
Yes.
Regarding the retirement, the half-time, or it amounts to almost a half-time at the guidance office at the high school.
Yes.
That will not be filled.
So actually, Leslie, you might know more information about this than I do.
So we tried, just so you know, that any positions that we were that we were reducing to not make that to make sure those were not direct services to students. I think that 1.5 is the one that it doesn't look like it appears like it might be affect students directly. However, we have some information about some grant funding that I think we're going to be able to make sure that that service is still maintained for our students. So that 0.5 position was primarily career counseling. So we have, in terms of the county, we have 3 guidance counselors at the high school. That's a pretty robust. That's pretty robust compared to the county. Like that's a pretty solid ratio of student to guidance. And so that 0.5, our intention is to keep it outside of operating, but to make sure that students also at the same time are supported in their career counseling.
Thank you.
Are there anything
Any other
else?
questions here?
I think we're all set. We can move on. Thank you.
Okay. I can go into any more detail into the budget, or if we have questions about the assessments, the revenue, any of these, I'm more than happy to take those. Or any questions that anybody has. I don't mind. I'm ready.
Okay.
Hey.
I think I'm ready.
Okay. Well, all right. Is that kind of all you? Well, not that I want you to come up with more, but when it comes down to it, there were a couple of questions with the ESSR2 grant.
Yes.
There was a question.
So this year this is all fairly new. We received an ESSER grant earlier in the year that helped us purchase PPE, able to pay for some of the but the remote learning for our students.
The technology with ESSER 1 was a huge expense was a significant expense for us because we needed to make sure all students had a Chromebook. We needed to make sure families had not just, that didn't have internet, that some of them needed not one hotspot but two, to make sure that their learning was accessible for them. So that was a big expense. And then also, I'm not allowed to go on grade, but I'm like in my head. And then
So we have students that are in the TECA program. They are not attending school. They are, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not remote learning. It's
so they are part of our district. They are enrolled with us. We're just offering them a fully remote option because we do have families, as you are aware, in our community that are immunocompromised, and they don't want their students to attend school because they're the circumstances in their family just don't allow for it. And so we have a fully remote program, but they are part of the district. We support them through our instructional coaches. So that was an additional cost, but
so that's what we did for pretty much the first ESSER. However, we just did receive an ESSER 2 grant. That one amounted to $1.1 million. That is what we were originally using to also offset some of these required local contributions, which we weren't able to do. This one, I mean, it's very, especially with COVID-related things and the learning gaps students are experiencing that they're going to experience going into next year, this money does get allocated pretty quickly. The major things that we are using ESSER 2 for, we have pool testing we do in the schools. So that is students and families can sign up to be tested for COVID in a pool setting, and then they get, if a pool comes back positive, then they get tested again. We can find out who is asymptomatic and has COVID. That is a huge cost. Going forward for this year, it's about $50,000. Moving into next year, which I believe we're still going to be needing to do it because I don't think all students will be vaccinated by the start of school next year, it's about $300,000. And the state's really pushing us to do that. And I really think that's where these ESSER grants are why they're being allocated to the districts, is to pay for these things. A couple other things we're using the ESSER grant for is Title I tutors. Right now we have 5 Title I tutors in the schools. We are looking to hire 5 more to help with these learning gaps, as well as a high school interventionist for mathematics. Those would be all paid out of these grants. Another big thing is some curriculum. This actually worked out pretty well. We had our math curriculum. We purchased 3 years out of a grant, which we no longer have. That amounts to almost like $200,000. So in this grant, we were able to pay for our Eureka Math K-12 or K-8 out of ESSER 2, so it doesn't have to hit the operating budget. On top of that, PPE, which is masks, cleaning supplies for the schools, those add up very quickly as well. So that's what the ESSER 2 is, for learning gaps and anything you need to help with COVID-related things.
All right, that answered that. Now, we haven't discussed the capital budget at this point. Are we planning on just touching upon that for a minute?
Yeah, so actually the screen that's up right now, this is the capital budget going into next year. Year over year, we did see an $11,054 decrease. We do have 4 projects coming off the books at the end of this year. So you can see the teachers' windows, Greenville air handling units, Wacona sidewalks, and district security. Those will all come off the books at the end of this year, FY22. And then we have Craneville roof at the bottom left. That's coming off next year. And the 3 remaining will be the Wacona doors, the Wacona building project, and Becca Washington.
Okay, a question was, or a thought was brought up. I know the town of Dalton is getting close because of the amount of assessment on the new school building. The town of Dalton is getting close to the Proposition 2.5 cap. In other words, there comes a point where the level of taxation that we're allowed to do, because we've done so many overrides over the years, what happens is with Proposition 2.5, you reach a point where even if you have levy capacity, you simply can't tax higher because you're already at your 2.5, your Proposition 2.5 cap. So, and we're approaching that, we're actually quite close. I don't know the exact number for that cap off the top of my head, but I understand it, last time I looked, it was right a little under $1 per thousand. But I'm not positive of that number. So, that being said, the thought process was that the Wacona Regional High School doors and sidewalks, if we could look at, from an equity viewpoint, considering your E&D that you have available, would it be possible to use the E&D to pay those two projects off? Would that be something that could be entertained, I suppose? I don't
So
understand.
I did talk to our district treasurer about that earlier today, and really there's two things. So I don't think it would be, one, because the E&D is the excess of the operating funds.
That's what I thought.
This capital is separate. So I don't even know if it's possible, but the other reason I don't think it would be, I would really want to look into it. It's kind of you're taking money from somewhere else to pay the capital. So the assessments would go up because we would not have that offset in revenue from E&D.
Okay.
So if our E&D went down by 400,000, that would be felt in the assessments.
Okay, so
Does that make sense?
that
So
does.
you're gonna feel it somewhere. You're gonna either feel it in the capital or you're gonna feel it in the operating assessments. But I think the big thing is, since it's excess from the operating and it's separate, somewhat like one of the towns could say, well, that is, just to make it easy, if this was Beckett, we were talking about Beckett School, if we wanted to pay off the Beckett Washington, a town like Peru or Cummington could say, well, that is our excess from our operating. We don't have any students going to Beckett. We're not paying those capital costs for Beckett. So it's helping Beckett, but it's not helping me.
Well,
Does that make sense?
it does. I guess the point was that Wacona Regional is for all of the schools.
Right, I just want to make
I
it clear
wouldn't
that, no,
have
you're
brought-
right. If there's anything we could do, no, it would make sense that it be Wacona or Nescus as a regional school.
Right.
All towns have it, but I just want to make it clear that somebody could say that. But I do think the big thing is that since it's excess operating,
Right.
That's the big one.
Yeah, you may not be able to cross, I understand that you may not be able to cross that line from.
Right.
No, but actually, I will bring up with the treasurer more and have a lengthier conversation about it.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think we can, I think that's a line that we can't cross because one's capital and one's operating, because I think we have looked at that, so. And I understand, the other thing is, it does seem, it's a little bit hard to swallow because you're saying it's like paying off your credit card. You no longer have the, whatever you put on it, but we're still responsible for paying for it. So it's I don't think we can cross between operating and capital at this point.
Okay. Yeah, that was my thought process when it came to E&D. E&D is different than what the town has called free cash. It's
similar,
they're similar in one respect in that they are the amounts of money that are left over from budgeting and revenue that comes in that was unanticipated and things of that nature. That allows us to use it. But when it comes down to E&D, the difference is E&D is part of the operating budget. With
Right.
free cash is not part of the operating budget. It's actually free cash from revenue that we've been able to garner for whatever reason in whatever way that we go about doing that. The E&D is, you're unable to do that. So I think that's why you're unable to cross that line.
So their capital expenditures come all based on grants and everything else?
Yes.
That's where their comes from, in bonding?
Yeah, that's where exactly. All of their capital's done through bonding and borrowing and all kinds of different
Right.
ways. And that's not considered operating, that's considered capital expenditure. So that actually and capital expenditures have to go back to large capital expenditures have to go back to the towns for a vote, don't they? So one would assume that it would have to go back to the towns to vote to pay it off in advance. One would assume.
Right.
All right, I think we can say. All right, that answered that question. And then there's just one kind of last question, because we kind of need to move on. We had the police chief is here. Just one last question. There was a conversation last year about beginning a maintenance department within the school district to be able to oversee the buildings and the physical infrastructure relating to the school district. Have we been able to get that started?
What was it?
It related to maintenance, I suppose a physical plant maintenance, or someone that oversees, or a department that oversees the entire operation from an infrastructure or a plant viewpoint. So in other words, like your house, you've got, 7 houses, whatever. Someone that's tasked with making sure that those things are running the way they should. If things are needed, they're taken care of, so on and so on.
So we do have a building and grounds manager.
We do have that actually right now.
Okay.
He oversees the 5 schools in the district.
Okay.
And he's kind of like the liaison between the administration and the custodians and the principals.
And
So
he
he
keeps,
is.
and he keeps actually the administrative team updated on a weekly basis on anything that needs to be, what's going well, but anything that needs to be fixed. So Greg and I, as well as the principals, all get a weekly report around anything that needs to be fixed, and anything, basically anything that needs to be fixed, and a timeline around that. So that's been going well, I think.
Okay.
And I'm really happy with it, and I think our principals are very appreciative of it. That is something that we asked for, is just have that, that weekly update, but we also get updates in between. If there's any kind of maintenance that needs to happen in between that as well.
Where do salaries for that show up in the list of functions?
Were you able to hear that question?
Where do salaries for that individual or team show up in the function budget here or something?
Oh, which function do they show up in?
Yeah.
That what it was?
Yes.
I stopped sharing my screen, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think you guys want to see our face again, I'm sorry.
It's all good.
So they are in the operation and maintenance line.
Thank you.
Okay, operation maintenance line?
So that covers janitorial or whatnot, grounds?
Yes, covers custodian, anything, yes. Custodians in the buildings, any of the supplies, but as well as the district-wide manager.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any big
No problem.
capital expenditures that this gentleman or group of people foresee in the future that we may need to be aware of?
And
Any marketing of it, or did you?
I was just gonna say, anything that we, at this point, anything that we would see, I mean, we're always, it's like owning a house. I mean, there's always something that you're constantly like upgrading, I don't know if to call it an upgrade, but you're constantly, making improvements, I guess I'd put it that way. I think moving forward, our goal would be, we're very cognizant right now of the new high school and how that's impacted our town. So I think anything that we would foresee for the future, we would look to grant fund it at this point.
Okay. The reason why I asked that question is because about 3 or 4 years ago, when I sat down with the individual who Greg is taking place right now, had said to me that there was some money set aside to deal with the roof at Nesca School. So that's why I always keep that in the back of my mind, which as of yet, it hasn't been done. So that's why I keep asking those
The
questions.
Nesca's group actually had, so we've been,
You have a good memory.
we've talked more this year. We're doing it piece by piece, so we're hopefully going to be at a place where the Nesca's group is going to be completely new, but we're doing, if we have any E&D money that's left over, or anything like that, end of year money, that's what we use it for, is that roof. And I think it's in a pretty good place as of right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we're trying to avoid any capital costs for as long as Greg's in this position.
Well, we appreciate that.
Not even gonna use that C word anymore, so.
All right. Are there any other questions concerning the school budget?
Just, I want
And if you do, I'm always happy to come back, or if there's questions throughout the year, you
Okay.
want updates,
Okay.
I'm more than happy to come back.
I may have a few later on, Greg, it's just more of just being aware,
You always, you can,
or just, you
you
know.
can always just send me an email too, I'm more than happy.
Oh, thank you very much, I appreciate that.
And just let everyone know, I have everyone's email. That's kind of a cool thing. I picked it up through this process. Thank you very much, Barbara, by the way.
I do want to thank the team that worked on this budget this year, on top of it all. We've worked very hard, and we do appreciate that very, very, very much. Of course, we always have questions. We always want to fine tune things a little bit more. We also understand because of COVID, there's a lot of unexpected things that the school is probably going to be up against. So our blessings to you on, I'm hoping to keep the kids well educated and bring them up to speed. But thank you very, very much for all the work that you've done.
Oh, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So what we'll do, thank you very much. You can kind of run off your meeting.
Good night. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
Right.
Have a good night. All right, Deanna is next. We'll do, once we're done talking to Deanna, we'll do a motion.
For budgets.
Yeah, for their budget.
Okay.
I don't know if we want to do their capital. I don't know if we want to look at that, we can, or we can do that after. Okay. Deanna, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm great. So,
Congratulations, Deanna.
Yes, congratulations, Deanna.
Thank you, everybody. It's been an interesting 4 weeks. I wish somebody will let me know that, hey, never take a new job during budget season. That's,
We'll know better next time.
not the greatest timing on the planet, but we're getting there.
You'll know next time.
There won't be an expecting.
I think he's setting you up.
I think so.
All right, so why don't you kind of run us through your budget and what's kind of going on with it? We've all kind of been a little on the curious side. And I've got a scramble of papers here that I'm trying to sort out myself.
You're right on the top, 210.
Okay, 210. So let's do 210. Let's take a look at it.
Okay. So basically, in a nutshell, the governor signed a law into effect on December 31st of 2020, and it's known to us as the Police Reform Act, and every single one of our representatives signed it, and now they have buyer's remorse because all of their constituents are screaming at them because of the impacts it's having on, Berkshire County specifically. Because I'll give you guys a quick summary of how we staff our department. So the Dalton Police Department has traditionally used 5 reserve officers. So we staff 5 reserve. And what I mean by reserve is they're part-time officers. We're a civil service department, so we have to hire based on a state list that is provided to us for people who take a civil service exam. So when we're ready to hire, we start at the reserve level. So we submit to civil service, they give us a list, and they send out cards to people who have passed the exam that qualify for the location that we are. It's now moved to a statewide list, so sometimes we're getting people from out by Boston, and it's a process. But anyway, so the Police Reform Act has made it now, so there is no more reserve academy. So when we hire a reserve officer, they now have to go through the full-time police academy. The full-time police academy is approximately 6 months, and that means they're full-time certified. Reserve officers are part-time certified, and they always work here with a full-time officer. So the state has now made it so that when we hire our reserves, they have to be full-time certified. So what that's going to mean for the Dalton Police Department is every time we hire someone, and it costs us $1,300, give or take, just to get them through the medical, the physical, the psychiatric, the physical fitness exams, all of those things, and then they're gonna have to go through all of this training and come here as a part-timer being full-time trained. And what that means in very short order is nobody's gonna stay here. They're all going to leave and take full-time positions, and we have no choice. So we have to send them, or they have to go through this full-time academy. So my budget this year, I really brainstormed this because we have to stop hiring reserve officers because they're not gonna stay and we're gonna be wasting money getting them trained. It now takes me 14 months to hire, get someone through the academy, field training, and then get in the door. So 14 months from now, I'll see my next new officer. And if those of you who know, I have a sergeant currently out on military leave, and I have another sergeant out with COVID. So staffing is not easy right now here, and a 14-month delay because of this new law is exceptionally trying for us. But we're doing well. So in my budget, I'm sure you've seen it at this point, I have asked for 2 new full-time positions. And the reason I have done that is because, as I told you, our hiring process has to change. We can't keep hiring reserve officers that are going to run out the door every time a full-time job comes up, and you can't blame them for doing so because they're going to invest a lot of their own time and money into their training. So we feel it's a very large waste of time, money, and resources to get someone in as a reserve. It's just not feasible anymore. So we're asking for 2 more full-time positions because of the length of time it takes us to hire. And, you know, traditionally in policing now, turnover is a thing. You know, years ago, it was the land of Dan Casey, George Adams, John Bartels, and they all stayed here for 30 years. My most senior officer on the day shift has a 1.5 years on. My senior officer in the department has 7 years on, besides my 2 sergeants. And so all our officers are very young, which is good. They're very good officers, but they're young. So we're seeing a lot of turnover. We're hoping to prevent that with a little bit of a culture change now. So hopefully we're going down the right road to retain people. So I'm happy to take questions because I know that's a lot of information overload on what the reform bill is doing. But it's really, it's putting us in a, I hate to use the word stranglehold, but it's a stranglehold at this point because we're really limited in our options in hiring. So go ahead and ask away to see if I can clarify anything on that.
Well, I've done a little bit of, since we met back a couple weeks ago, I've done a little bit of research, Dion, and I'm a little reserved on the rise in the budget for a couple of reasons. The first question is, do we presently have, other than the 2 permanent reserve officers, they're reserved now until forever because they aren't interested in anything. But do we have other reserve officers in the pipe that are going to be finished or available or whatever? I'm not sure how it works quite.
So what we currently have is we have Officer Stefanik, who's a permanent reserve. He has a full-time job at General Dynamics. He is not interested in taking a full-time, and he signed his rights away to do so through civil service. So he is willing to attend the Bridge Academy, which is about 200 hours of additional training that we do have to pay for because he works here. And then he will be considered a certified full-time officer. He can work, and he is willing to stay here. Lucas Perry is also our permanent reserve. He has also signed his rights away and his options to be a full-time officer. He's a full-time Pittsfield firefighter. The other reserve officers we have were Tyler Miller. Tyler Miller is coming up full-time. We're taking him from Hinsdale, but he was a reserve here, and he starts effective April 5th. He is filling the vacancy that I left when I made chief. Sergeant Bozzella was promoted, and Tyler Miller is taking that vacant spot. That leaves us to Dorothy DeMoro Litz, who is a reinstatement. She worked with us for about 6 years previously, and we just hired her back. She is full-time trained. So the next full-time officer we can hire will be her. She does not have to attend the academy, so it's going to be a huge time and money savings for us. That leaves us with no other reserves. We were in the hiring process. We had conditional offers to an officer named Misty Millette and also another one named Joseph Koo. Misty is out of the Reserve Academy. So she's currently going through the physical fitness part of her hiring process. She has that on Friday, and she will have to attend either the full-time academy or the Bridge Academy to continue her employment process. If she's going to be full-time, she will go to the full-time academy. I'm not interested in putting a full-time officer on our streets that does not attend the full-time academy. It's not even an option for me. They need to go to that 5 to 6 month training. And that leaves us with Joseph Koo, who we interviewed. He did our background check, and then when we went to put him in the Reserve Academy, we found out abruptly that they shut it down. They gave us no notice they were doing it. As a matter of fact, the academy was still on their website for March 16th start, and we signed him up, and we just didn't hear back, and we kept, he was bothered, emailing them, we were contacting them, and we found out they shut it down. So that's how we found out. And other than that, no, we have no other reserves because they've all moved up to the full-time level, and we've tried to hire, and we can't because of the reform bill and being civil service. So that's where we are in that hiring process.
Okay, so in looking at your budget, it seems to me that your reserve officers that you were using, it's the budget's actually going up a little bit on the reserve officers, but yet we're reducing the number of reserve shifts and such. But yet you're talking about putting on some full-time officers. I'm a little perplexed by this at this point.
Right. Well, if you remember what I told you 2 weeks ago, 14 months before they can start. So I'm not going to see them until the end of next year, right before the new budget. So it's going to take all of that time to get them trained, minus officer lists. So we have a huge time delay. Trey Ballardini and Josh Bradley are both attending the full-time academy in September. So we're going to be 2 officers short right off the bat. So they're going to, those reserves hopefully will fill a lot of those shifts that I have. But remember, it's a lengthy time process before we see these officers on the street.
Okay.
So that's why this year's budget is a little rough with the anticipation that the following year will reduce because we're going to be fully staffed. We're just not fully staffed, and it's going to take substantial time to get us there.
Okay, now with that said, this is where my reservation came in. After going through the MMA website and reviewing the legislation on my own the other day, I spent, like I have lots of time to do this, but I did it anyway. First off, the post system that they're talking about doing, that's where the full-time, from what I understand, that's where the full-time commitment comes in. I guess that's, for lack of a better thing, because of post, that's prompting this. From what I'm reading, that's what's prompting this full-time commitment, because basically it's going to a full-time academy, and you have to achieve all of the full-time criteria or core or whatever. So, but we haven't quite gotten to that point. So what I'm kind of wondering is, instead of budgeting and having this set, because we don't know where the state is right now. This whole thing is kind of a moving target from what I'm reading and understanding.
It's not a moving target. And this is where I go to these chiefs meetings pretty much every day, and I spend hours and hours doing these. It's a moving target in the fact that post isn't going to be set until June 30th, but it's not a moving target in the sense that the Reserve Academy is no more. I cannot hire and I cannot do anything. So my worry is, if one officer leaves this department, our overtime budget and our officer wellness is going to be a major problem to us. I can't keep mandatoring these guys. I'm mandatoring right now. Like, I'm looking at our schedule. I have one officer on 2 doubles in a row this week. I have one other officer working 3 extra shifts. It's too much. We can't staff our department, and I can't hire. So if I don't get the full-time positions, I'm gonna probably lose a good number of officers to exhaustion. So I understand it's a lot, and I understand there's reservations, but this is not something that I'm happy about. It was thrown upon us. So as for post, you explained that. You've done a little bit of research, and I greatly appreciate that because it's pretty information intensive. So post is broken into two parts. It's broken into certification, and that is the part that's mandating this training. It's mandating the fact that all officers have to have the same standard of training throughout the state. And the way it was explained to me in some of these meetings is it would be like, if you have nursing, for example, if you had the state come down and say, okay, starting next Monday, there's going to be no LPNs, no CNAs, no EMTs, everybody has to be an RN. That's essentially what they did to policing in Massachusetts. They knocked all our legs out from under us, and they did it with no notice. There's no reserve academy, and we can't hire. Like, I'm lucky enough to have one officer that went through the two in the reserve academy when we hired her. So she's going to be able to work once we get her through the field training and the other things. So that's a plus for us. But as for other officers, we can't even hire anyone because our next person on the list has not been trained. And I can't train him until the academy in September. And that means he's got to agree to go through a 5 to 6 month academy and come back to a part-time job, and then he's not going to stay. He's going to go take a full-time job based on our sponsorship through the academy. So it's throwing money out the window if we continue that hiring process. It's not a good strategy. And it won't keep my department staffed.
I wasn't really advocating for that. What I was going to get to was that instead of upfronting this, so to speak, because we aren't positive, because the politicians have heard rather loud scream from the constituents, myself included, I might add, since they've heard from us and they're aware of the problems, I don't know if we're going to see funding or any of those things. My thought process was, is it possible for us to get involved in this, and when we reach, and Sandy might be able to answer this better than I, if we were to reach a point within our salary portion of our budget that it was about to reach some level of crisis. My question is, are we going to reach that crisis for sure or not for sure? When we get a clearer picture with this, there's no reason why, if this goes to a crisis level, why we can't convene a special town meeting and move money from free cash or stabilization to the police budget to satisfy this. This is a big number. It's $130,000, something like that. Yeah, around $130,000 that we'll have to talk about. It's something, if we had to, I suppose we could leapfrog a month into a month with the reserve account, but until we have a completely clear picture. Because quite frankly, Deanna, this may be a case where we've got to put, I'm not saying that you shouldn't put the officers in. What I'm thinking is, if we have room somewhere within the budget to make it happen till, say, for instance, January. I'm just using January as an example. Say, for instance, January. If we were to reach that point and we come to find out we are going to see a shortfall, at that point we could convene. We'd have to talk to the select board. There's a whole litany of things that would have to happen, but we would then be able to convene a special town meeting. Is that something we could do to accomplish that?
No, because I have to reserve these spots in the police academy, and they're every 6 months. So if I don't reserve those spots for an academy in September, I can't put anyone through the academy until next April. And that's going to be another 14 months before I can get anyone on the street. So I can't hire anyone for years, is what you're telling me. And there's no way I can guarantee you I'm going to have enough staff to fill the department. So it's that much of a crisis. So
the point I was trying to make is that you would be able, with that process that I just laid out, you could start things now. There's nothing saying you can't start them now. I'm not saying don't start them. The point was that get the ball rolling, get it moving forward. Once we can get a clear read on where exactly we're at, I see 2 officers. I'm actually, from a personal viewpoint, I'm seeing 3 officers in this. That's what I'm seeing, and you have a little better handle on it, and I think you're kind of being pretty kind to us. But I'm wondering if that $130,000 is actually going to be higher than that. And that's kind of where I'm coming from, is that when we have a clearer view, we can convene a meeting and fund it to the level that it needs to be funded at. But at this moment in time, it's a little tricky to just kind of throw some money in there, and that's okay. But do we want to make sure that we are going to fund it properly for next year? That's where I'm coming from with it. I'm not saying to not continue forward. That isn't the thought process at all. It's more of a look to the future and maybe have a better handle on it, and then provide you with more than enough funding to do what you want to do instead of scratching by, is my thought.
I guess I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound like I'm not following you. It's not something that I can just snap my fingers and say, okay, we need someone right now and I can train them. It's a months and months and months long process. So if I don't act proactively on this, we're going to miss the boat and I'm not going to be able to staff the department. It's that much of a situation. And like I said, it was thrown upon me by this law, and I know there's moving parts with it, but the Reserve Academy is no more. So I have no choice but to hire and put people through a full-time academy. And if I'm not going to commit to them having a full-time position, they're not staying, and then it's a waste of the time and the money that the town's going to spend to put them through all of that training, because they're going to leave and take a part-time position, or I'm sorry, a full-time position elsewhere. And this is something that I just met with the Berkshire County Chiefs yesterday. Everyone is in the same boat. We are all in this together, and it's the same thing. Lennox is adding more officers. Lee's going to be doing the same thing, and we are the only department in Berkshire County that uses the reserve officers to the level that we do. No other department staffs their department the way we do. It's cheap labor for our town, and I recognize that, but they're not trained as full-time officers. It's not something I've actually ever really been a big fan of. They have 270 hours of training versus 1,200 hours of training that the full-time officers complete. So, I get it. It's a cost savings, but again, it's not going to be allowed by the state. It's not allowed now. So, I guess I'm sorry if I'm not following you. It's not something I can just snap my fingers.
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
What part is
Sandy, I have a question for you. If indeed Deanna went forward and decided to hire these officers and did the things that she says she needs to do we have the ability in the present budget to fund it completely till January 1st? Is that something we
There's
can
always the
do?
ability to fund it to January 1st, but to what Deanna is saying, in September, 2 officers are going to do a 6-month or 7-month academy, of which they will be, they'll have wages going to that academy, and she needs 2 people to replace those 2 full-time officers. Well, they now are, right? They're going to be full-time, right, Deanna?
Yes, they're on a waiver right now, temporary full-time.
Yeah.
And as Sandy said, they're leaving for the academy.
Yeah, somebody else has to replace them, and they're also going to get paid. So, yes, the budget will be full because it's budgeted all the way to June 30th. But you're now subjecting what she's trying to put into place with a town meeting that may say, nope.
Well, quite frankly, we've got a budget sitting here that's looking at a pretty hefty climb.
And they still might say the same thing.
It's not something that is unlikely. I can tell you that from what I'm hearing, people are wondering about this, and that's where I'm coming from. Is if we can get this thing out there where we can talk to more people in relationship to because this thing is new, it just came out, I think, in January, December 31st, I think they signed the legislation. With that being said, not a lot of people are even aware that this has happened, let alone we're scrambling, I'll admit it, and I don't have, and quite honestly, I don't even think that this committee has much objection to a $133,000 increase. We really don't have that kind of an objection to that. But at the same time, quite honestly, I don't think it's enough money. And the concern there is, I'll be right with you, Susan, the concern there is that if we can come back to when we have all of the knowledge that we need, even if we can maybe get a representative to come in and talk to the people of the town about this legislation, it might be an easier sell for us. But at this point, it's going to be difficult to sell at town meeting. Yes, Susan?
So I'm sorry, go ahead. I'll
No,
wait.
go ahead.
So we've been working pretty closely with Adam Hines and Paul Mark, and I can tell you, I also meet with Secretary Turcott from the Public Safety. I've been attending meetings with him as well. And in no uncertain terms, our Berkshire representation all signed on this bill, and they have now gone back and they're saying they have very big buyer's remorse about signing the bill because they didn't know what they were signing. That's what they've all said. And I said, well, kind of your responsibility to know what you're signing. It's got a massive impact on our communities. So we've been working with Paul Mark. There was supposed to be a big meeting tomorrow night. Mr. Dorsey and I told you about it. And that mysteriously got canceled today. And it was supposed to inform finance committees and select boards and town managers and municipal governments about this, because I can sit here and explain it all I want, but I was hopeful that this meeting would be a great source of information besides just me. But I think these representatives are scared, and they should be scared, because departments like Hinsdale, Windsor, Cummington, Peru, they're gonna close. They're in deep trouble. I mean, we're lucky because we're mainly staffed full time, but this has such a monumentous impact on people in departments. It's insane. But as for Mr. Dorsey, when you see there's not enough budget, or not enough money, we specifically budgeted salaries, everything. We very carefully budgeted 2 full-time officers, their shift differential, their education, their clothing allowance. We went step by step the cost it would cost us to add these 2 additional officers. So I'm confident what I'm asking for is enough money to fill my staffing request. I'm very confident in what we did. I've met with Sandy for hours. I think she tried to get a restraining order against me to leave her office, and I just wouldn't. But she was extremely helpful going through this with me, and really taught me a lot. I mean, this is my first budget in reality, but I was pretty confident. Sandy, I think you were fairly confident we were right on with the numbers. So I'm not fearful we don't have enough money. I think we were extremely detail-oriented on what we needed. But, I know it's a lot, and I appreciate you guys even hearing me and not muting me as I'm talking about this, because it's horrible, and I am so sorry, and I know it's a lot to ask. I do, and, the frustration for me is walking in the door and having this Police Reform Act thrown down my throat, and then having to come to you nice people and say, hey, give me lots more money because I can't staff my department now. So I appreciate you hearing everything I have to say, and I know it's information overload.
Thank you very much. Hang on, Karen. Susan, did you have something you'd like to ask?
Yes, but before I forget, who canceled the meeting, and whose meeting was it? Was it the representatives?
Oh, it was
like to vote?
I can actually, I can email it to you.
Okay.
You can give me your email address after the meeting. So it was the Franklin County Select Board was sponsoring it, and it had a lot of speakers. I actually have it right there. So it was the Franklin County Select Board Association, and the meeting topic was the 2020 police reform legislation. And what they were going to have is a bunch of speakers. They had like a chief of police, they had the executive director of the Massachusetts Police, and they had a few chiefs that would, there's special committees that they meet directly about the police reform. So as much as I try to be informed, they're extra informed because they get the firsthand information and we get it from them. So they were just going to explain what the impacts are, because there's 25 action items that we have to do right now. There's a timeline implemented on how we have to follow. There's policies and different things that we're working on our end. That's not a cost. It's just administratively much of a burden trying to get it done. But as for the staffing, that's the issue, we're facing because of this law.
And so, back to the budget, if I understand it correctly, Bill's suggesting a special town meeting perhaps to get everything you need, and you're saying what you need, you are confident in what you're asking for is what we will need, and that you need to do this now in order to put the plan in motion for next fall, next September.
Yes, I mean, unfortunately, what I've learned is town government and state government are exceptionally slow moving. And if I am not proactive about this, I'm going to miss the boat, and I'm going to miss and I have no choice. I have to get two of these guys into the academy. Because if I don't, their waiver expires and they can't work. So I'm regulated by civil service law on that. So, and when Mr. Grossi asked about, the numbers are high this year because I still have to staff the department while I get these guys trained. So it's the hope, the anticipation of the following year we'll be able to lower some of those numbers and get back to a full staffing and not have to use so much overtime, because our overtime budget is insane right now, and it's not going to be good before the end of June, I promise that. And it'll be a little rough while the guys are in the academy. We have to staff the department. I mean, I worked a midnight shift on Sunday, so I don't ever remember a time ever in my 23 years here the chief of police is working patrol shifts, but that's how it, so.
Okay. I have a.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question from Jeff Noble.
Chief Strout, can you just confirm to me that the two new officers are budgeted at $52,847? Is that what am I reading that correctly?
Yes, that's the salary.
Those are the two new salaries. Those are the two new salaries. Those are the two new salaries?
Yes, that's correct.
You didn't summarize all of what the salaries are for the officers compared to the 514, is that correct?
I can't hear him.
It looks like last year salaries for officers was 514,000, and you don't have a total for this year.
Okay.
I'm just curious what the difference is.
So, I mean, we're actually seeing a decrease because we've lost, very senior officers. So, and we actually saw a 1% decrease when I took this position because I was one of our higher paid officers. So we're bumping our patrol salary down because the officers are at step 1, step 2, so they're much lower paid. And we lost a senior officer due to termination. So it's actually not, I don't have the total in front of me. I don't know why it's not in front of me or added up. I don't know. So
It's never really been added up. The reason why Jeff is seeing it now is because it gets added up on the expenditure report that's attached. But there's not been a total on any of the budgets that I know of for the actual salaries for the officers. So I'm trying to add it up real quick.
Yeah, I was just curious, Sandy, as a comparison year over year, what the salaries in that line represents. And if it's down, that helps to strengthen the argument for adding 2 new positions.
Yeah, what Jeff is attempting to do, Deanna, is to strengthen our argument and strengthen our position.
I understand.
Wow.
Because I remember I have to stand up in front of a rather hostile town meeting and explain this to people.
Yeah, but you'll have,
I don't carry a 9mm, you know what I'm saying?
you'll have adequate
And
police
they're older,
protection.
and it'll be fine.
Okay, you're gonna get to walk me through this. Wow. Every year I have to do some sort of a speech. What's with that? All right. Okay.
So We have a quick ad, because Becky Whitaker is a rock star, and I'm sure Sandy's doing it. I assume, Beck, can you unmute yourself for a second? Becky's my lifeline. I'm phoning a friend. So Beck, that 596, is that with or without the shift up?
That's without the shift up. That is just the hourly rate from S2 down to P8 on the paperwork.
Okay. So it will go from 514,073 for 2021 to 596,881. So even with the adding of the two, it's, we're still down. I mean, it's obviously an increase from last year, which we understand, but it's not the full 105,000 increase of salary because we've, lost some senior officers and,
Before we add the 2 new officers, roughly, we're at 491, 187. And then you add in the 2 new officers, and that brings us to the amount Chief struck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Beth.
You're welcome.
I see where you,
So are we
I
netting
see
out
now
to
where that
8,283?
line item, that 514 came from.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right, I see where it was, for whatever reason, it was left out. All right, cool.
I guess the final question of mine is there anything significant you want to bring to our attention on the expenses side?
It says the 2 shredders. Why do we need 2 shredders?
So we went up some equipment repair because of our computers. And some of our equipment needs to be recertified this year. Cruiser maintenance, we haven't had a new car in a couple years, so our cruiser maintenance is starting to increase. Our training, because we're mandated on this new reformed training, and we're gonna have to send our officers through different training that we haven't always had to do. Let's see. The radio service, we have to do the test. That's in capital, though. You'll see, that we're requesting some repeater and testing. Yeah, I mean, other than ammunition is through the roof, cost-wise. We just put a call in to explore a different lower cost of ammo, a different type, for training purposes. See if I can get that cost lower for us, but due to high demand, our ammunition costs are through the roof. And we're state mandated on these training courses. We have to do them twice a year. The officers have to shoot 300 rounds of ammunition per fall. So it's a significant increase. So that's why we asked for that. And we're state mandated to do that. We have no choice. Same with our 40 hours of in-service. That's state mandated. We don't have much of a choice. So I don't know if there's anything there that jumps out at you. Maybe it can answer.
Well, the $2,500 shredder was the one that I think jumped out. I happen to hear that somewhere here.
Yeah.
Now, did you, I had mentioned in our meeting, had you had an opportunity, I know you're a very busy person, have you had an opportunity to look into that bulk shredding company that we spoke about?
So I have not yet. I will. It has not been a great weekend here.
I get it.
So,
I get it. That's why I said it wasn't. There was no level of urgency, but and again, kind of circling back to that, the thought process more of the 20. I don't have a problem with the $2,500 for the shredder so much as paying somebody to stand there and stuff things into the shredder is where we can hire a bulk company, come in and if Sandy's got a bunch of stuff that needs to be shredded, police documents need to be shredded, we could have somebody come in and buy the pound or buy the ton, shred the stuff, and it's certified, it's cleared. We don't have to worry about any liability surrounding it. There's a whole host of things that go along with that seem much better than stuffing it in the shredder and hoping it goes away. Yes, sir. I knew Sandy was going to chime in. God, I like that.
So, about the shredder. We have a shredder here in Town Hall too, and I think it was maybe a little bit less than that, but it works great. When you have records that you can't throw in the trash because
Absolutely.
they're gonna go in the recycle bin. I walk to the shredder and I throw it right in. I have boxes sometimes after a weekend of paper that needs to be shredded. It takes me less than 5 minutes to shred
Okay,
a box. So I don't think we're paying people to stand at the shredder.
okay, well,
I think that is really a really good operating cost to have because it's part of your daily work where you might have something you need to shred and it's an operating cost.
Right.
So it's not really
well,
you know,
I,
the cost to have a bulk shredding company is really, really a good idea too, because on an annual basis, can you imagine how much has to be shredded in everyone's place? So things that are stored for 7 years, 1 year goes away, then there's still 7 years. I mean, it's just, that's the retention schedule. Get rid of the retention schedule a year later, so.
right, well, and that was.
Really a good idea for that too.
That was the thought process, was more for that 7-year retention that we have to deal with. Is that instead of dealing with like I said, I was completely okay with the shredder, the purchase of the shredder. It was more about, let's make sure that we're making good use of our time in hire a shredding company and take care of the bulk, the big shredding process, because when I spoke with Deanna, there's some big bunch of documents that she has to get rid of, and the thought process was to have someone do the shredding for them. Well, instead of doing that, hire a company. Stay with the shredder, Deanna.
Somebody has to take it away too.
Absolutely.
Just so you know, I did talk to Pat about doing the bulk. The other issue we have is with the way our cases and being able to dispose of them, I'd still be stacking if we wait for a bulk. Where if we had a shredder, we could shred as we dispose of cases. Because our cases, we have to keep 10 years.
Okay. You have to keep them 10 years, but when you reach a 10-year point, don't you just take the whole year and wrap it in a box? I guess it's my
I know,
thought.
but if we had, so what happens with our cases is we scan them and then shred them.
Okay.
So rather than having them stacked up because of space, having a shredder back there would actually be more convenient.
Oh, yeah, I'm okay with the shredder, really. It's just, the thought process being that for the bigger portions of the project, let's take a look at the bulk people. Sometimes it's cheaper to hire than it is to hire a company than it is to do it ourselves in some cases. Not all, but some. All right. I think that's about enough of that. Is there any, Karen Schmidt has a question.
Chief Stroud, I've just got one question. Because of this Reform Act, has there been any type of discussion regarding a possible grant for any of this extra stuff that's going on, extra expense that's going on? Have they talked about maybe helping the towns or police departments with this exorbitant issue that you're doing?
So every meeting I have been to, it is referred to as the unfunded mandate. My guess, purely speculation, is that the state is going to have to throw some money towards our communities because they signed it, they forced it upon us, we have no other options into this. And I do think with all the legislators that are having the buyer's remorse that they're having, is there grants? No, I've heard of no grants, but I am having a sneaky suspicion that they're going to have to do some type of funding reimbursement towards communities, but I don't know how, when, or, I have nothing concrete to go on. It's simply an unfunded law that we have to follow.
Right, so, but it's in kind of the idea's been thrown out, so that's good.
Yeah, it's definitely, they know, and they know that, and I'm very disappointed that meeting was canceled tomorrow because I was really, really hoping that information was gonna flow, so I'm curious to hear the reasoning why it was canceled. again with the Secretary of Public Safety via Zoom next week. So I'm sure he'll have some interesting conversation. He's not too happy for us either, so he understands.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill?
Yes, Susan?
Maybe the select board and finance committee could invite some of these representatives to come and speak with us directly. I think they need to start hearing from the towns and understanding ramifications of this. And we can ask them for money, suggest maybe some grants to help offset this, because
Well,
I think the small towns, will
yeah,
be
as this
impacted
conversation,
more greatly.
yeah, as this conversation's been going on, I've been writing a few notes, and something that, and I don't, kind of almost a question for Deanna, but we have a thing that goes through our highway department called Chapter 90. And we also have something that goes through our schools called Chapter 70. Is there any chance that considering this legislation, why couldn't they come up with a chapter whatever and help fund or use methods to fund police departments at the level that they want them to be at? That's something that I would advocate through our legislators. They quite frankly, when they came out with this, one would have thought that they would have come up with some sort of a funding method similar to Chapter 90 or Chapter 70. One would have thought they would have done that.
We
But
can have this argument for a long time.
Absolutely.
But why can't they just go back to the reserve system the way it worked to begin with when chief and the.
Because we're in the world of defund the police.
And that's not right.
Well,
That's not right.
Yep.
Sorry.
I agree with you.
Political
But
comment.
that's the reality of it.
I don't agree.
It's everyone is out to get the police, not everyone, I don't mean you guys, but, it was that very big movement that had nothing to do with Massachusetts. We are, and I'm not saying this because I live here and I'm biased, Massachusetts is one of the best trained police in the country, and because of what happened elsewhere, we're paying the price for that. It's infuriating to me. I'm always excited to have good training and have great training for our officers. I certainly embrace that. But to have this forced upon us with no notice and the cost to our communities is disgusting. And I'm angry about it as much as probably you guys are. But we're just, there's just nothing I can do, unfortunately, other than, beg and plead and hope for reasonable humans like you.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know, it's just a tough thing.
Yeah. Karen Schmidt?
This is a little different, Chief, but because we also deal with the burden of our full-time officers, once they're fully trained, it's been known that they go to the state police. That's another exorbitant expense that happens to us all the time. So in the
I think
process
that's
of...
been exaggerated though, because I had a select board member say the same thing to me, and I said, well, in the last 9 years, we've lost 20 officers. 4 of them have gone to the state police.
Mhm.
So that's a bit exaggerated for some, but we can't compete with state police when their starting salary is $80,000.
Well,
What's that?
That's not my problem. I always look for people to better themselves, to go where they want to go.
Right.
I don't have a problem with that. My problem is that we as a town have to absorb that cost. Is there some way, when you're dealing with this reform thing, that there could be like grants or something that could help the towns also deal with that type of process when these sergeants go on to the state?
Do you want my real answer to that?
No, I couldn't
Give
do
us
it
back the
already.
Quinn bill.
Huh?
We lost the Quinn bill and the education incentive, and that was a huge plus for officers leaving here, because that education incentive was a lot of money for us and for the officers to better themselves and be more educated. And there was a reason for that Quinn bill, and then the town or the state decided they didn't want to fund it anymore. So, and I don't blame towns for getting out of it. It's a lot of money, but
Yeah, we didn't get out of it though. We funded it. We did.
right. Well, no, you funded So, they stopped getting that Quinn bill. Pittsfield PD still has it in their contract, and they get 30% for a master's, 25 for a bachelor's, and 20 for an associate's degree. So, it's just, I mean, if that's, I think that we're okay now. I think we're a pretty stable group of officers. I don't think we're going to see a huge bunch of turnover. Anthony Baroli was going through the process for the state police, but has just come to me and told me that he's decided to stay here. So that's a huge win for us. He's a great kid. He's a Dalton kid, and I'm happy to keep him now. So I'm really happy that he's staying. What's that?
He loves us.
He does love us. He's a good kid. He really is. So I'm pretty excited that he opted out of the process. So.
All right, well, we have a lot to do this evening, still, and I don't know how much we'll have to talk about it in a minute. If we're gonna go further than the 8 o'clock hour, we'll talk about that, but we need to kind of move it on. I just wanna go to the committee. Are there any questions from other committee members? Kara, she's our newest member, and we have Mike. And we have one person from the public here visiting us tonight, Sam Pasquale. He's just kind of seeing how we go about this. And do you have any questions, Sam, for us this evening? No? Okay, thank you. Anything further, Susan? No. Okay. All right. So thank you very much, Deanna. Why don't we could go ahead with a motion if you'd like.
We should probably let Chief Stroud go.
Yeah, Chief Stroud can go if she'd like. You're certainly, thank you very much, Deanna and Becky. Thank you so much for your presentation. We're going to have to look into this. I like the invite a rep, see if we get a representative to come to one of our finance committee meetings. We can have a conversation, at least start a dialogue.
I will say that Mark Stroud, my other half, has been in contact with Paul Mark to have that meeting happen for you and the board. So that is definitely in the works. He is our rep. So I will keep you all posted on that because that's definitely the process, because we have a lot of questions for him. He's probably not wanting to answer them, but we all have a lot of questions, I'm sure, for our reps. So
Mark,
thank you guys so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
have a nice night. Thank you.
You too. See you later.
All right. So why don't we just dive right into the police budget to get started, and then we'll. So Susan, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I make a comment? I mean, I probably should have done when Deanna was on.
That's okay. Go ahead.
There was the question about the salaries, and Becky gave her answer, but I came up with something different. And basically, the increase in the salaries with the two positions brings it up to $629,000. Just so you know.
Is that just the 210-5114?
Well, so the dollar figure before those two is 523. So it basically is not much different than last year. The differences, I believe, are the increases in the pay for 3 sergeants.
Okay.
There's 3 sergeants now, so
Right.
that includes why it's up to the 629.
Yeah.
So that we did.
So I should have brought that up when Deanna was still on. And I don't know if she's still listening too, based on Dalton Community Cable, but.
So Sandy, you're saying that basically I don't know if they're called the officers line then comes to a 523 before the 2 new officers, and then I'd add 100. I'd add 104 to that to get to 627.
Yeah, I got 620. Well, yeah, 629 is what I got. So it's 523, 733.
Yeah. Right.
So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I added it twice.
I appreciate the comparison there. That's all.
Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I see her point for sure.
Yeah.
With the 2 officers, you know?
Yeah.
And somebody else is gonna go to the academy too, it might be 2 more people, like in the next cycle.
Can they
Beginning
stand
maybe
there?
March of 22.
Well, part of my concern here is that her target staffing, in talking to her, she did a nice layout for us. And she actually staffs with three shifts of 3 people is how she's planning on staffing. That's actually a change. I believe it used to be 3 shifts, 1 shift with 3, 2 shifts with 3, and 1 shift with 2, I think, is how that went.
It's
Well-
free, and free,
Right.
plus the chief on the first one.
Right, plus the chief on the first one. So at any rate, in kind of thinking about that, what she put up there, for rotational purposes, I kind of thought it would have been 4 rows of 3. That's why this whole conversation of we don't know what's coming, I'm inclined to think that we're going to actually need, just judging by what I saw, I'm almost thinking we're going to need another officer to accomplish that. But I don't know enough about the scheduling to be able to say this is what we're going to need. I can't say I'm any kind of an authority, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think she would know the best about her.
Yeah, exactly. I would I couldn't agree more with that. So but at any rate, that was when she put that up. It was a great illustration, and in doing so, it kind of brought to mind the possibility we might find ourselves eventually at a point of 4 for rotational purposes.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's.
So right now, I guess I should say right now, there's a sergeant on each shift, and that wasn't like that before.
Right.
Right.
So I do believe that on the midnight shift, there were 2 officers, and if they needed some expertise, someone got called in to help them out. And I'm not sure, so Sergeant Furlong was always on the second, the middle shift. And on the first shift was 2 officers and the chief. So it was the midnight shift that didn't have 3. But now there's sergeants on each shift.
Okay.
And the chief on the first. And that's how it's worked this year. So I'm anxious to see where the budget is at right now.
Me too.
For FY21. So be surprised. There's going to probably have to be some movement not long from now.
Yeah.
Right.
Sandy, could we have maybe, because as it looks right now, we're going to end up with a meeting next Wednesday at this point. Is there any chance that either you or Alicia could do the expenditure report run for me in advance? Just one for me. Is that something that you could have her do?
Well,
I know it's coming up.
You are going to get one because the last payroll and vendor warrant was this week. So even if it's going to take through the 31st, there's no more other postings for payroll or vendor.
So for next meeting, we'll be able to kind of get a handle on what's going on with this thing. We'll probably be able to see what's going on. Okay, all right. Okay, I'll make sure we get, if we could just have this before the next meeting, that'd be great. All right, Susan.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
So would that give us an idea of where the overtime stands?
Yeah, yes, it will. We'll actually, because that completes the 3rd quarter, correct, Sandy?
Yes.
Yes. So that completes that'll complete the 3rd quarter. So we'll have a really good handle on it at that point. So what I'll do is as soon as I have that expenditure PDF that Alicia is so good about sending me each month, I'll get that off to everyone so that you can look at it. I think it's going to be an important document. Yeah, I think that's going to be an important document coming up, especially for this budget. do we want to table this budget at this
I was
point,
gonna
or
say,
not do a motion? We'll do it, we'll take it up next Wednesday?
I think Mike's nodding his head yes, why don't we? just-
Yeah, okay, let's
Yeah.
set that, we haven't taken a motion, so let's set this budget aside for next week.
Just, you have to remember that 21 is a different animal, with the exception of 2 extra full-time officers in this budget. 21 is going to be different because there was an interim town manager, or excuse me, interim police chief
That was you.
for a few months. You know, how many months? Since August all the way to the middle of March.
Right.
His wages were more than what the police chief wages were budgeted, okay? And now we have some sergeants on there too. And granted, some of the staff that had the higher pay are no longer there. So that helps, I guess if you want to call it that. So the main thing that you should look at when you look at your expenditure report is at the very bottom of the salary is going to be a percentage left.
Right.
And you should compare that. You should compare that to the full-time people like highway. Even though they don't have as many people, the percentage left is going to be a pretty accurate accounting of what is missing, let's say, if you get what I'm saying.
Did everyone follow that? It's more about a percentage than it is about the dollar in this case. Because as with all government, it's very labor intensive. So because of it being so labor intensive, that's where the percentages become more important, because it doesn't change very much. Okay.
All right, so we're gonna postpone the,
Yeah, let's postpone that. Now, we're getting on to 8 o'clock. Generally, our meetings are 2 hours long, and this has been a long time. Do we want to continue on with budgets?
I don't charge anymore for overtime. I don't know who else.
Would everyone like to continue, and we'll, how much further do we want to go? Do we want- Brittany has gone off the air here. I don't know what's going on, but she has the recording of this meeting that she'll be able to use.
I'd rather go through another hour and get through this than postpone it another week. That's my thing.
Yeah, because next week, we're gonna definitely have to look at the police budget. Next week's meeting is gonna be relatively quick. It shouldn't, I can't imagine it's gonna be long, but,
That's all right too.
but we, as I see it right now, I can't see us not having a meeting next Wednesday.
I mean, we must have 12, 14 budgets in front of us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, let's put we'll put in another hour on this.
Carrie, okay? That?
Barry,
Kara?
are you with, is Susan?
Susan, you wanna continue on with another, can you hold up?
Does she want to, or
Jeez, I don't see a glass of wine
You wanna go
sitting
get her
next to her.
at least have a
Go get
cocktail?
yourself a beverage. She's got water.
Come on, is there vodka in there?
Look at it. Sandy's got tea. Do we want to just take a moment, grab some water or something before we go on any further, or do we want to just go ahead?
Fine, diving into it.
I'm good.
Let's dive in.
I got the water bottle.
Okay. Well,
Make
let's.
a motion to approve the budget for Board of Health, Department number 510, consisting of salaries of $52,734 and expenses of $6,575 for a total budget of $59,309, a decrease of 1.12% from the prior year.
Second it.
A motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for Board of Health, Department 510, in the amount of $52,734 in salaries and $6,575 in expenses, for a total budget of $59,309, a decrease in the budget. Why is it a decrease?
Dropping his amount of time he's putting in.
Oh, no, the cost of the health agent.
Right. From 35 hours to 24 hours. Even though he's going up a grade in the step.
That's good thing.
Sandy, I guess the Board of Health is okay putting in less time?
The Board of Health
agent?
Since, even in this year, since August, has been putting in 24 hours.
Okay,
She was a contracted
Yeah,
position,
have it.
when she came on board in the middle of March last fiscal year.
right,
And I do believe that was for 24 hours as well. Can't remember, I'll have to look it up, but.
okay,
So when she came in as an employee in August of fiscal year 21, she requested 24 hours. And if so she works Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday. She has other obligations on Wednesday and Friday. The obligation she has a lot to do with COVID and belonging to the Board of Health and other towns as well. So she's chosen to do the 24 hours. She asked for contingency hours so that if she did have to work for the town of Dalton on a Wednesday or Friday,
right,
she would be compensated for that. So she reduced, so with the position being 35 or 36 before, she had sometimes worked 40 hours a week, but has now managed to find a way to not be so, I can't work like me, I should say, and take 4 hours, only use 4 hours for contingency, and she is hiring, of which the select board approved for the rest of this year, a health inspector / waste management coordinator,
yeah,
who is going to help her with those kinds of things that the Board of Health has to do as Board of Health, the waste management, and health inspections.
right,
This person is also going to be our education enforcement on recycling, and that part of that position is being paid for with a $20,000 grant over 22 months. So that is not on this budget because it's a grant and it's going to go into its own, fund. And so this person, even though it's 8 hours in this position, she has another 8 hours in the other position, and has good certifications and records or a resume. And so anyway, that's why this budget is increased. It's not increased,
right,
but changed, let's say,
yeah,
over the way it was before.
thank you.
So Sandy, nobody was doing the health inspections, was that assigned by anyone before that? The $8,000, $8,800 position? The health inspector, waste management coordinator?
No, that's a brand new
That's
position.
brand new, so nobody was doing those functions prior to, or was that part of what she was doing prior to with the additional hours, or no?
No, Jane did, well, some of the stuff that Jane is doing, she's finding not enough time to do. So they've hired this person who is going to come on board and take care of things that are, Jane has other things to do that are Board of Health related, with meetings and Dr. Doyle. Do you know Dr. Doyle, anybody? He's also on the Board of Health.
Yeah.
So I wish you were here to explain it to you. But as far as I know, this 8-hour position is unbenefited, but the person that is going to be taking it is, very knowledgeable and will not need much training.
Okay. Thank you.
Right. Are there any other questions concerning the Board of Health?
I just have one, maybe because I just noticed it. Sandy, on the expenses, where it says contracted service, it was $9,900 transferred from the reserve fund
Yes?
on July of 2020 to cover the health agency. So this, because we had to transfer money in to last year, is
Was
this
that
all?
on 510 or was that a different budget?
It's on 510. It's right below crop and tech training.
Oh, okay, yeah, the reserve funds?
Yeah.
I guess I don't understand what you're asking me.
I guess that 900, because we had to transfer it in, is it all covered in this budget? I mean, are we gonna have to transfer again? I guess.
Well, that
No,
was-
I think that it went unused once she became an employee. And
Okay.
you don't see it here in the 21 budget because it's a reserve fund transfer. This is just strictly what was budgeted at votes from town meeting.
See, what happened was we had hired a company to do, because I believe it was Ed Fahey used to do our health agent, and then Ed retired. So then we had to kind of fill the gap between getting a health agent and having a health agent. We had to hire a company to do that, and that's what the reserve fund transfer was
It was
for.
all about to cover that cost.
Yes, it was to
But
cover that
is now
cost.
taken care of with the
Yes.
hiring of it, okay.
Yes,
That's
now
what I'm
that
That's
cost.
right.
is
Sorry,
taken care of.
Sandy, I don't articulate very well, sorry.
But it's just hard to hear too, so I'm sorry.
No.
You have to, just be sure if you need to speak, just please lower your mask and speak up. That's why I kind
Okay,
of lowered the
thank you.
mask. We're over 6 feet apart, so we're good. All right. Is there any other question? Do we have any others? Okay, seeing or hearing no further questions on Board of Health, Department 510. All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble is aye.
Aye.
Karen Schmidt is aye.
Aye.
Kara is an aye.
Aye.
Mike Trone's an aye. Susan's an aye, and I am in the affirmative as well. Oh, here's Kelly. We have to be kind to Kelly, everyone. She is the one that allows us, host this wonderful place for us to enjoy this meeting. And it is a thing with the Council on Aging, without a doubt.
Probably be okay.
Okay,
I'll
let's
make
have a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Sandy's got a question, sorry.
Well, we're gonna bring up a motion, and then you can go ahead. All right, please, if you're good with the motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for Council on Aging, Department number 541, comprised of salaries of $117,141 and expenses of $39,870, for a total budget of $157,011, an increase of 1.48% over the prior year.
Second.
A motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for Council on Aging, Department 541, in the amount of $117,141 in salaries, $39,870 in expenses, for a total budget of $157,011. Sandy, is there any discussion? Sandy, what did you want to, did you have something you wanted to add to this?
To the 541?
Yeah.
No, I had a generic question we can answer later.
Oh, okay, all right. We just, interestingly enough, we happened to see Kelly today, and one of the things that's kind of come to our attention is that we have a person that lets us in for these later hours, and that person needs to be compensated, and it was not put in the budget. So she may be coming to see us, just to let everybody know. But I have to say, from a meeting viewpoint, meeting chair viewpoint, this is a really great place to hold this meeting.
With the exception of Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, with the exception of the Wi-Fi, and I think someday they're gonna sort that out. We'll get it.
She said she had broadband in here. She said.
Yeah, for whatever reason, my computer does not pick that up.
I know.
So
So,
they have a nice smart system, that can be done really.
yeah, we'll talk, and I'm sure we've got something we can do. So I might, she says there's a wired connection here, so I might even grab a wired connection.
If I had a cable right now, you'd be
That'd be all set,
If I had my cables.
Yeah, so we're gonna work on that with wired
Next
connection.
week, please.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so we'll but at any rate, when it comes down to that, that's something that we may, Sandy, have to talk to Kelly about. If more meetings are gonna be held here,
Right.
We may have to, think about maybe having
Staff person.
a staff person that can open and let us out, let us in, and that kind of thing. So we might wanna have to, maybe talk about that later on. I don't, if something overruns, then we just, if something overruns, then we can do a reserve fund transfer to cover it. It's not gonna be that big, that alarming, but I think, looking to the future,
Yeah.
considering we have only a small room for conferences over at the town hall,
Yeah,
this may be our answer to that problem.
right.
I think it's a good answer.
And maybe it's other committees' answers as well.
I would think it would be. But boy, I hope that's the case, because this is a great facility.
Yeah.
All right. So on the Council on Aging, it looks pretty straightforward with the 2% on the pay level, plus they've had a little bit of an increase with steps and such.
I'm good.
Oh, okay. Are there any other questions? Seeing or hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of Council on Aging, Department 541, signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Nobles, an aye. Karen Schmidt. Aye.
Aye.
Kara Smith is an aye. Mike Jerome's an aye. Susan? Aye. Susan's an aye. And Bill Grosine is an aye.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for group health insurance, department number 914, PPO, HMO, and MedX 2, comprised of expenses only in the amount of $743,824, which is a decrease of 2.68% from the prior year.
Second.
A motion has been made by Jeff Nobles, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for group health insurance, Department 941, in the amount of $743,824. Boy, we like to see them go down like that. Sandy, could you enlighten us a little bit about this? I can make an educated guess, but I would rather, if you have some of your vast wisdom.
I need to get to that budget because mine are in department order.
Oh, okay.
And you guys are going not that way, but
No,
let me see if I can find it.
Yeah, we reorganized before the meeting, Sandy, sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, it was a mad dash around here for a few minutes.
Well, for some reason, I'm not seeing it.
914 was at the almost bottom of the pile.
Yeah, that's where I thought mine was too, but hold on one sec, please.
I always find it difficult when it comes to insurance. You look at the way the
Oh,
budget.
did you say 941 or
No,
914?
914.
Okay. I was looking for 941.
Oh, that could be problematic.
Yeah. So here it is right here.
All right.
So, this budget is based on, as you know, healthcare.
Yeah.
We have a few people that are in our Blue Care Elect, which is our premium insurance, but the town will only kick in the same amount of insurance for that Blue Care Elect as it does for the HMO Blue. They made that decision, a few years ago. And so the employee has to kick in the rest. So that's what the ones you're seeing at the top, then the HMO Blue, which is the preferred, or PPO, and MedX 2 is the retiree insurance. And then underneath that is group dental, and then new subscribers. So with that said, the new subscribers are 8, and that's due to the fact that we know we will be hiring 8, possibly. There's a couple in there extra just in case, because turnover around here is going quickly lately. And the reason it's 8, you might think when somebody retires that that means you no longer have to provide them with their health insurance, but that's not the case in towns and cities in the state of Massachusetts. You provide them with health insurance and dental insurance. So when someone retires, you're still paying on their insurances. So with that said, though, the budget's reduced, and it has to do with dental insurance decreasing. I'm not sure, let's see, there was a small 1.31% health insurance increase in HMO Blue. No change in the MedX. And the additional enrollments, you know, I don't remember what was last year's additional enrollments, but. So anyway, overall budget decreased by 2.68%.
Okay,
We'll take it.
we'll take it. Is there any other discussion about this, about the group health insurance? All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye, Karen's an aye, Kara is an aye, Mike is an aye, Susan is an aye, and Bill Racine is an aye. Animal control.
I got animal inspector.
Okay,
I just
I'm
wanted to
sorry.
ask one question now,
Yes.
before I get too ahead of myself.
Yeah.
So the first budget that you approved tonight was the Board of Health, is that correct?
Yes,
Correct,
The others that we went over have not been approved.
that's correct.
Right,
right.
Police and school.
correct.
Okay, just
Yeah,
making
we
sure.
haven't done anything with the police or the school yet. It's pretty likely that we will probably take that up at the next meeting.
Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for animal inspector, department number 247, comprised of salaries of $1,660, no expenses. A total budget of $1,660, an increase of 1.9% from the prior year.
Second,
Motion has been made, and seconded, or made by Jeff Noble, and seconded by Karen Schmidt for animal inspector, department 247, the amount of $1,660, comprised solely of salaries.
Just a 2% increase.
Yeah, it's a 2% increase.
Is that right, Sandy?
The rate of, the rate of, the rate of pay seems a little odd there. $1.59 an hour, I'd like to get labor at that price.
It's a stipend.
Good luck with that. Yeah,
so what
it's a
happens
stipend.
with that rate is the animal inspector is on the wage scale grade by step 3. And the animal inspector is part of that rate. So what really happens is the rate that's there, you multiply it by 2% and you subtract it from the total ACO rate, grade 5, step 3, and that gives them the pay rate from the animal control.
Yeah.
That's how that was developed, and 1.59 is simply 2% of what it was last year.
Yeah,
Right.
So,
that works for me.
Yep.
Are there any other questions concerning this budget? Seeing or hearing no further discussion about animal inspector, Department 247. All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble is an aye, Karen is an aye, Kara is an aye, Mike is an aye, Susan is an aye, and Bill Racine is an aye. That is unanimous. Thank you very much. On to animal control.
Yeah, I'll say.
yeah, it's not written right.
Which one's that?
Sandy,
Animal control,
before I make a motion to approve this budget, do you have animal control 292 in front of you?
Oh, yeah, that's
yeah,
Sandy?
$100.
Sandy,
can't hear you.
Oh, still hear you.
do you have animal control in front of you?
I do.
You see salaries is $22,000, but down at the bottom it's 100.
Yes, I do know that, and they were supposed to fix that. We noticed it when we went over the budgets, but I guess they didn't. So it'll be corrected.
So I should make a motion on the 22,000, right?
22.
22,706
Okay.
for the salaries.
All right.
I can't hear you, Jeff.
I'm sorry, I'm too far away from the speaker, I guess.
Okay, what do you have for expenses?
27,106, yes.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve the budget for Animal Control Department number 292.
I got two budgets, different numbers for 292.
I do too.
One for 5,500 and expenses and one for 44.
I only have one.
Oh,
I am unprivileged.
I didn't finish the motion, so it's not even official yet.
Yes.
I've got this one. That's fine.
I got it.
All right, you're right, yours goes all the way down through. This one, where you go, here.
yeah, that's the.
Yeah, this is the one we had.
Yeah.
What's that one?
I don't know, I got it, they have it too.
Oh, you know what? I got
When
one.
you made these, you must have,
No, Deanna gave these to me, my packet. That's the one with the full.
Oh.
They made the repairs, the stapled together one. The one that was stapled. Well, no, it might not have gotten a staple, come to think of it.
Sorry, Sandy, what, can you hear me? Sandy,
Unless it just added
She's
on.
muted.
can you not mute your, thank you.
Sandy, you're muted.
Now you can hear me.
I got it. We have a little discrepancy here. We have one version of Animal Control 292 that shows expenses of $4,400, and we have another version that shows expenses of $5,500. Which is the right one?
Well, I didn't get the other one that you're talking about, so I can't tell you what the right one is unless I add through, because obviously the totals that are there are not correct. So that's why I was muting myself, so I could use my calculator.
good, because
I was thinking you were using some rather colorful language, but that's beside the point.
The line item is saying, it's probably just one's added.
Unmuted, you can hear me calculate. How's that?
That's
Oh, the line item.
Well, Sandy,
It looks like the line items are the same.
the one
Anybody
with,
do the math?
I'm doing it now.
the one with all of the numbers on it came from Deanna. That's the one that I kind of came up with. Deanna had sent me these budgets, and I think it was inadvertent. I don't think it was intended.
What do you have?
So that might be where the confusion is coming from.
Well, so the budget she gave me originally, and the one that went before the select board was the one that has the 4,400 as expenses, but the correct number is 5,500. That's the correct number.
That's the one that I had distributed. This is the one I had distributed. Jeff is the one. Let me get up. Okay, this one.
Yeah, I got it.
Okay.
So this adds up to 5,500?
Yes.
So what do you have for a total, Jeff?
What? Yeah.
I don't know. I got different ones. I have one here that all the expenses line items add up to $5,500. I didn't add them individually, but the total is listed as $5,500. And I have another one where it's listed as $4,400.
I'm adding this, I don't know if these are the same.
Well, you got the second one because that's the one I gave to Karen, where it's incorrect.
So mine's
The
in.
4,400 is incorrect.
4,400 is incorrect.
Yeah.
4,400 is
And I
incorrect.
never got what Bill got.
So
So,
5,749.
Okay.
It should be total salaries of 22,706
yes,
and expenses of 5,500.
yes.
Very good. I'll make a motion to approve the budget for Animal Control Department number 292, comprised of salaries of $22,706 and expenses of $5,500. And I would guess that that's an increase of some percentage. Marginal at best.
28,206.
Yeah. This.
Yeah, because the
This-
FY21 budget's not correct either. The salaries are, but
Yeah.
the expense totals are
Yeah,
Okay,
the budget that I provided, which will probably be the darker print,
yeah,
Yeah.
the budget that I provided is the accurate one.
yeah.
This one, this one was, the other one was before the TA
So this one's wrong.
from the select board.
It looks like expenses are level
The
funded.
select board has the wrong numbers too.
Right.
We discovered that Monday night.
Okay, cool.
We'll work with the ones we have.
Right, sounds good.
So this is,
Is there a second?
Yeah, is there a second on the motion?
go ahead, Sue.
Susan?
Oh, sure, second.
We have a second from afar. A motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Susan, for Animal Control Department 291 in the amount of $22,706 in salaries and $5,500 in expenses, for a total budget of $28,206. It looks like it's just simply the, yeah, it looks like it's just the salaries.
Right.
Yeah. Not a lot of questions. The ACO does a pretty good job out there.
I think it was 449 is the difference.
Are there any,
Yeah, it was 449 is the change.
are there any questions concerning this budget? Susan, do you have any questions? All set? Okay. Seeing or hearing no further questions or discussion, all those in favor of Animal Control Department 292, signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye.
Aye.
Karen Schmidt is an aye. Kara Smith is an aye.
Aye.
Mike Jerome's an aye. Susan Carol Lombardi is an aye. And Bill Grusine is an aye. That is unanimous. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the budget for Highway Department number 420, comprised of salaries of $338,741 and expenses of $143,248 for a total budget of $481,989, which is an increase of 2.34% over the prior year.
Second.
A motion has been made for Highway Department 420 in the amount of $338,741 in salaries and $143,248 in expenses, for a total budget of $481,989. What went up? All I have is the expense budget.
Well, 5,000 went up for the purchase services of the steel sweeping, catch basin, cleaning, miscellaneous to comply with the stormwater permit. There was 5,000 in the schools.
Yeah, gotta speak up.
The highlighted miscellaneous purchase services went up.
Yeah, because it's red.
Oh, the highlighted part.
Yeah.
Ah, I can see it now. I see, said the blind man.
Pick up the camera and shot.
Yeah, exactly. Huh. Okay, catch basin, it must, Sandy, is he hiring out for catch basin cleaning now?
No, well, so the catch basin cleaning machine, I believe, went on the Fritz. They did have one, so they're now having to rent it out, rent one.
Oh.
So that's why that's an increase for purchase services.
Okay.
Are they getting a new?
Is there a plan to purchase a new one?
He hasn't said that he's asking for a capital project of a catch basin cleaner.
Okay.
I'm curious. Well, there are companies that do catch basin cleaning, so it might off in the future might be a contractor service maybe.
I just wonder if he's got a broken one, what's
Right,
he gonna do with it?
and just so you know, that this is something that the state mandated, stormwater permit
Right.
requires them to do more work, in catch basin and
Yeah, because there's the debris, what it is they want to stop the debris that ends up in the catch basins from going downstream and out into, affecting the fish and whatever else, and they're trying to stop that process, understandably so. Just better equipment, I suppose. Is there, never mind.
need to put in a capital project request.
He hasn't put in the request for,
All right.
doesn't want to get one of them $200,000 vacuum cleaners? Catch basin vacuum cleaners. I think John can think of better ways to spend his money, I'm sure. All right. Are there any other questions about the highway budget? Susan? All
Is there a
set?
second? I didn't hear it.
Yes, Karen Schmidt was the second.
Good. No questions.
All set? Seeing or hearing no further discussion on Highway Department 420. All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff
Aye.
Noble, Karen
Aye.
Schmidt is an aye, Kara Smith is an aye, Jeff Noble's an aye, Susan is an aye, and Bill is an aye. Thank you very much.
All right.
Oh,
Make a
Mike
motion.
Jerome, I keep calling him Jeff. You don't look anything like Jeff either.
I voted twice. Vote early, vote often.
Yeah, right, you're vote early, vote often, right?
Make a motion to approve the budget for snow and ice, department number 423, comprised of salaries of $27,812 and expenses of $131,610, a total budget of $159,422, which is level funded from the prior year.
Second,
I heard that.
You heard it. A motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt for snow and ice, Department 423, the amount of $27,812 in salaries and $131,610 in expenses, for a total budget of $159,422. So, this budget, and I just do this for everyone's edification each year, this budget is a budget that we can legally overrun. It's really the only budget that we can do that. And that's because of the emergencies and things that show up because of snow and ice. So that's why you generally don't see an increase in this budget. We cannot decrease this budget, because just for that overrun reason. So you can raise it, but once you raise it, you can never decrease it. So you actually find yourself in a bit of a pickle if you decide to do that. But I don't, Sandy, has he?
Looks like we're pretty much on target here.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, 44% expended.
Has John
Winter's over.
indicated to you about any further expenditures in there? Sometimes they can do like equipment repairs and things like that while you're within the snow and ice period for fix broken equipment.
Well, we still are in the snow and ice period.
Absolutely, till April 1st, isn't it? April 20th or April 1st? I can't remember.
No, there's no date associated with it.
Oh,
Because what if it snows in April or May, and it has? So
well, yeah.
there's no date associated with it.
I
It's
thought
just
there was
whether
a-
the event stopped happening.
I always thought, I was always left with the impression that there was October 1st was the start of what they considered the snow and ice budget, and ending was in the middle of April somewhere.
There's no ending.
Learn something new every day,
Not
apparently.
for county.
Okay.
4th of July.
But to what you were saying about not decreasing the budget, you also have to similarly think about when you increase the budget, if you increase the budget and you don't overspend it, I don't think that they allow you to deficit spend. Is that correct? So it's also increasing the budget is an issue. That's why
Exactly.
it's state level.
Yeah, this is a kind of a, it could be if you underspend this budget, I gotta make sure I get this correct. If, for whatever reason, if you raise it and you
Increase it
underspend
and
it.
then underspend it.
Right, if you increase it and then underspend it, you can't overspend it the next year, or you give up the ability to overspend it. I don't remember which it is. I wanna say you give up the over expenditure for the next year. Now I remember. So you basically, you have to, you skip a year of legally being, if you underspend it, you skip a year of, you have to level fund it the next year, and if you overspend it for the next year, then you can overspend the budget. So yeah, it is a budget that you have to be very careful. If you see that you're consistently overspending it each year, then you could conceivably raise it. This has been raised. We have raised this back years ago. We did, but
I kind of laughed at the sidewalk clearing.
yeah.
Sorry, but.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sidewalk clearing was a bit of a joke this year, without a doubt.
It has been every year.
So that's a ticklish subject with the finance committee chair when it comes to sidewalk cleaning. Yeah.
Well, I think that sidewalk clearing is, school routes is what that's for.
Yeah. It was initially thought up for school routes. It was way back many moons ago, budgeted a much higher number, as I recall, somewhere around $25,000, and it's come down to $11,000 for sidewalk clearing. And as the budget has gone down, the ability to get it cleaned has decreased as well. Walking on the sidewalks in the town has been a bit of a challenge this year and many times in the previous year. So it is what it is. It'd be nice to have our sidewalks cleared much better than they are. There's plenty of equipment out there to purchase to do it. Maybe he doesn't have the help to do it. That would be my only kind of thought.
He does have the equipment. That's why the cost went down when we were hiring someone. He has the equipment, but I'm not sure he has the personnel.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's the question. Do we have somebody that's, do we have somebody that's willing to sit in that machine and just let it kind of toss the snow wherever it needs to go? That's the real question. Have we ever put any thought, Sandy, into hiring people that have the ability to run that machinery, or something like even run snow plows on? They used to call them snowbirds in the state. I don't know what they call them now, but people that were like retired equipment operators and things of that nature would go and just do a snowstorm. They wouldn't do anything else. That's all they would do is just a snowstorm and be done with it. Do we ever entertain doing that at all? Do you know?
I think we have, and I don't know if it was put in this budget because this budget, overtime for this budget is just when it's not during the day. So,
right, exactly.
I don't know if in the 420 department, they did have line items, on-call operators is what they're called, and that would take care of people plowing during the day. I don't know if they call in people in the middle of the night that are temporary employees.
Yeah, well, like I said, they wouldn't carry any benefits. All they would do is basically if they're around. Sometimes you have for instance, operating engineers and that have licenses to run machinery and trucks, what have you, that are laid off from construction during the winter. They just come in and do that during the winter months. That's all my thought process was.
That'd be contracted labor then, right?
I would think.
Let me ask a question. Has there been complaints about the way the roads are being plowed, or are you just putting
Just-
that out there?
Well, just the sidewalks is what I hear a rather large number of complaints about. And it's not just a couple, it's a lot. So it might be something we someday in the near future need to focus on.
Yeah, I agree. But like I said, what sidewalks are the ones we're supposed to plow, and what ones are the ones the townspeople would like them to be plowed?
The ones that we're supposed to plow aren't getting plowed, let alone the ones that they would like
Does
to
anybody let
plow.
John know?
I'm sorry? I haven't talked, I haven't had the ability to catch up to John to talk to him about it. But as soon as I do, I will have a conversation, as I have before. So, it's all okay. All right, so for the snow and ice budget, is there any further discussion? Seeing or hearing none, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye, Karen Schmidt is an aye.
Aye.
Kara Smith is an aye.
Aye.
Mike Jerome, got it right. Is an aye. Susan Carolyn Bradley is an aye. And Phil Persing is an aye. Next,
I make a motion to approve the budget for sewer department number 440, comprised of $99,759 in salaries and $23,050 in expenses, for a total budget of $122,809, an increase of 1.62% over the prior year.
Second.
a motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for sewer, Department 440, in the amount of $99,759 in salaries and $23,050 in expenses, for a total budget of $122,809. Pretty straightforward. We got our 2% salary increases and expenses are. Now, Sandy, this one is kind of an offset because we use the sewer user fees cover this budget, correct?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Yeah, sewer, the money for this comes from kind of a different place than other budgets. All the other budgets kind of come from like the general fund, but there's a thing called a sewer user fee on your taxes. And sewer user fee pays for this, and then I don't know if we're gonna get it here today or not, but the sewer disposal for the city of Pittsfield, that's another budget, much larger than this one. It's a get your attention number on that, so at any rate, but it is rolled into the sewer user fees. This here is kind of the maintenance on the system that we have within the town, is what this is. All right. Are there any questions about the budget? No? Seems like everyone's pretty happy with that. All those in favor of sewer, Department 440, signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye. Karen?
Aye.
Karen's an aye. Kira is an aye.
Aye.
Mike Jerome's an aye. And Bill Josine is an aye. And Susan, I'm sorry. Geez, I went right by you. Susan, you're just this little bitty picture. That is unanimous.
Okay.
That is unanimous. Thank you very much.
I make a motion to approve the budget for cemetery department number 491, comprised of salaries of $68,678 and expenses of $22,004, for a total budget of $90,682, an increase of 1.5% over the prior year.
Second.
A motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for cemetery, Department 491, in the amount of $68,678 for salaries and $22,004 in expenses, for a total budget of $90,682. That's still staying with the.
Yeah.
Yeah, this budget hasn't seen an increase in quite some time on the expense side. I seem to recall these numbers being like this for years.
works.
Yeah. Don't mess with success, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Susan, do you have any questions on the cemetery budget? I don't want to forget you again. Okay. Is everyone else all set? It is. All right, seeing or hearing no further discussion on cemetery, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye.
Aye.
Karen Schmidt is an aye.
Aye.
Kara is an aye.
Aye.
Mike Jerome's an aye. Susan is an aye.
I,
Bill Gracine is an aye. That is unanimous. Thank you.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget for Parks Department number 650, comprised of salaries of $34,562 and expenses of $16,914 for a total budget of $51,476, an increase of 1.36% over the prior year.
Second.
A motion has been made for Parks Department, made by Jeff Noble and seconded by Karen Schmidt for Parks Department 650 in the amount of $34,562 in salaries and $16,914 in expenses for a total budget of $51,476. This budget, you probably noticed we had one before, prior to this, a couple of weeks ago, for Parks and Recreation. And that is actually a grant that goes to the Community Recreation Association, or CRA, in the town of Dalton. This budget here, and that covers, I can't remember the wording exactly, but the CRA budget covers the lines on the ball fields and the grooming of the ball fields themselves, the actual grading, and also the any of the leagues and things of that nature that take place. They do all of the administration and all of the work that it takes to get that done. This budget here covers the actual cutting of the grass, maintaining of the fences and things of that nature that have to take place around the parks in the town. We have more parks than just simply the ball fields and things like that. We have a lot of other parks that has to take place in. So I just wanted to kind of pass that along for people that haven't been through this process before, to kind of, this can get a little confusing with Parks and Recreation and Parks having two. We separated this quite a few years ago because we saw we actually have seen some pretty substantial savings in this department because we were able to use people, personnel from the cemetery. They were able to, we had a lot of crossover personnel that we were able to use, and we've saved a pretty fair amount of money. It works out great. All right. Are there any questions concerning this budget? Seeing or hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye.
Aye.
Karen Schmidt is an aye.
Aye.
Kara Smith is an aye.
Aye.
Mike Jerome's an aye. Susan is an aye. Bill Gracine is an aye. That is unanimous. Thank you.
Make a motion to approve the budget for landfill closure / monitoring, department number 433, comprised of total salaries of $2,186 and expenses of $13,950 for a total budget of $16,136, which is level funded from the prior year.
Second.
A motion by Jeff Noble has been seconded by Karen Schmidt for department landfill closure / monitoring, department 433, in the amount of $2,186 in salaries and $13,950 in expenses for a total budget of $16,136. Sandy, wasn't there something going on with this that, wasn't it, I can't say it was supposed to disappear. Wasn't something supposed to happen to this, or did we spend out the money finally?
So, yes, so what happened was, in FY '21, if you notice at the bottom, and don't pay attention to the part of the bottom that is under 21, because that really there was a continuing appropriation left in 21 of 11,134. And the budget ended up being 16,136 for 21, which left a negative amount of $5,002 that had to be raised in the tax rate. So that budget, there is no longer a continuing appropriation. It ended in fiscal year 21. So for the first time in, I don't know, 8 years, we are fully funding this budget in the tax rate in FY22. So that money was leftover insurance money that was paid for something that happened, or not insurance money, but closure money, I'm sorry.
Right.
Leftover closure money of the landfill. And we were able to use it legally by reducing this budget year after year until this past year.
Now, okay,
So that's no longer a source.
right, I think, wasn't it
No
money?
longer a source.
Yeah, wasn't that money like a grant or something like that? I can't remember what it was.
I think it was leftover borrowing for the
Oh,
landfill
okay,
to close it.
okay, all right. Yeah, I knew,
159,000 or something like that.
yeah, I remember when it happened, I just was outside of my pay grade to figure it out, so. All right, are there any other questions concerning landfill closure monitoring? Seeing or hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye, Karen is an aye. Kara Smith is an aye, Mike Jerome is an aye, Susan Carol Lombardi is an aye, and Bill Josine is an aye. That is unanimous, thank you very much.
Make a motion to approve the budget for public health nurse, department number 522, comprised of expenses only, $6,599, which is an increase of 4.6% from prior year.
Second.
Motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt for public health nurse, department 522, in the amount of $6,599, comprised totally of expenses. Contracted nursing services,
What nursing services are provided?
public health.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's something we've been doing for at least 4 or 5 years. We get billed quarterly for their, whatever, like flu shots or.
Yeah, don't they come, isn't the nurses there, don't they come over to the senior center and administer shots and check blood pressure and things of that nature? I think that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. It's just, like veterans, elderly, even young people, they have scheduled hours. I don't remember what they are, but there are times, I think if you were to look on the senior center schedule, you might find hours that you can come here to see the public health nurse. It's no charge, I believe. It's all
Is
paid
that
for.
true, Sandy? No charge to people taking advantage of the service?
Well, we got shots over at the senior center. They took your insurance information. I don't know about blood pressure. I think that's a free service.
Yeah.
But they still administer them, the shots and whatever else they do.
Right.
Maybe they have clinics with health and wellness even, who knows?
Okay.
And it's possible they go to some of the shut-ins too. I mean, I do believe that might be part of their protocol.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions concerning the public health nurse? Seeing or hearing no further discussion, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye. Karen Schmidt is an aye.
Aye.
Kara Smith is an aye. Mike Jerome's an aye. Susan?
Aye.
And Bill Josine is an aye. That is unanimous. Thank you.
And I need help with these, Bill. Sandy. Sure. Make a motion to approve the budget for maturing debt and interest, department number 710. Price of expenses only of $229,990, decrease 3.41%.
Second,
Motion has been made and seconded for maturing debt and interest, Department 710, in the amount of $229,990, comprised totally of expenses. That is a reduction. I always struggle to follow this maturing debt and interest, Sandy, so you're gonna have to help me out as well
Me too.
with this.
they're paying down on their debt.
Is that what Karen, speak up. Is it, are we paying down on the debt? Is that why it's reduced and getting smaller? Is that what's happening here?
Well, yeah, so pretty much every year, as long as we've had borrowing authorized at town meeting, those projects get expended and borrowed. Like in May, they begin to be looked at to see how much we have to borrow. And you have to, when you have borrowing, you can expend without satisfying the borrowing, but by June 30th, you have to satisfy the borrowing. So we can expend on these projects, but then we have to borrow for them before the end of the year, otherwise it's a free cash debt, okay? So these are the principal and interest payments for that borrowing. The expenditures occur in a special revenue fund and not in the general fund for the borrowing. But the payments of that debt are made in the general fund, okay?
Are these are all debts that are approved at town meeting?
Yes, borrowing authorizations that are approved at town meeting.
Right.
Yeah, these are, it's kind of like a car loan.
Yeah.
I guess that's the best way to describe it. It's one way for us to kind of keep the tax rate, even though you're paying interest, a little bit of interest on it. It's a great way of kind of keeping your tax rate down. Because say, for instance, we went out and had to buy a dump truck. You'd have to come up with $150,000 or $160,000 for a new snowplow truck, some crazy number like that.
So we just bought 2 of them, and they're $225,000.
Oh, they were 240? Okay. So, when you've got to buy a piece of equipment like that, buying a piece of equipment like that is difficult. So, you gotta.
So Sandy, the very top on 21, where it says 2158 and
I don't
then
have my charger. This is
14980,
not good.
I take it those have all
I'm
been.
not hearing you, Karen.
Bill.
Yeah, you gotta raise your voice, and I'm losing power, so we
All
are
right.
gonna have to
That's all right.
pick it up.
I'll deal with it. I'll talk about it.
Okay. All right. Karen will catch up to you later with that question. It was a simple
I
question.
think it's a give and take.
Okay.
It's just that I saw 49,000 come on, 2,000 come on, but yet the one on the 2021 side, I take it those are all done.
That's what it
Yes.
says, see where it says loan satisfied?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's
yes,
what I'm
loan
thinking,
satisfied.
Yeah, all right.
Okay.
My
All right.
computer is
No
fine.
more
You're talking about the ones up top, the ones
Yeah.
that are in 21 that are not in 22?
Right.
Right,
They
those
are
are,
satisfied.
Right.
that's why the pickup of the 49,000 and the 2,000 on
Those
the,
must be new
so
ones.
the balance is out. Okay, I got it.
All right.
Just clarifying
Are there any other questions concerning maturing debt and interest?
it. No.
Seeing or hearing no further questions, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Aye.
All right.
That is Jeff, in that order, it is Jeff Noble, Karen Schmidt, Kara Smith, Mike Jerome, Susan Carol Lombardi, and myself are all in favor. That is unanimous.
Are you gonna plug in, or?
Honestly, I thought I had my charger, but I do not. I left it on my desk.
We have 2 more to do.
We have we can get one more in and we're done.
We got 2 more.
Oh, 2 more? Okay.
Well, there's 2 more budgets for Stewart, or for maturing debt and interest.
Okay, let's make it quick.
See if we can get them done here. I'll make a motion to approve the budget for maturing debt and interest department number 710, debt excluded, comprised of expenses only of $418,083 level from the prior year.
Second?
A motion has been made and seconded, made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for maturing debt and interest. Department 710, debt excluded in the amount of $418,083, level funded from previous year. Old school demolition, so that's not gonna change until it's paid off.
So the good news is FY '22, it's paid off.
That should be paid
We
off.
we banned the first year and borrowed 2 years, and that is gonna be paid off in '22.
Nice,
So
okay.
that goes away.
So that'll help out that cap that I talked about earlier on in this evening's conversation. So, okay. Right. Are there any other questions? Everyone seems to be pretty sad. Okay, all those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye, Karen Schmidt is an aye, Kara Smith is an aye, Mike Jerome's an aye, Susan is an aye, and Bill Drusine is an aye.
Try one more last one here.
Yep.
Make a motion to approve the budget for maturing debt and interest, Department number 710, sewers and drains, comprised of expenses only of $97,055, which is down 13.06% from the prior year.
Second?
Jeff, what was the number?
710,
Sewers and drains?
department number?
Yeah, debt and interest? Sewers and drains?
Sewers and drains, debt and drains.
Okay, all right. And what was the amount again?
97,055. Don't you have it?
I got it now. Okay, a motion has been made by Jeff Noble, seconded by Karen Schmidt, for maturing debt and interest, Department 710, sewers and drains, the amount of $97,055, level funded.
No.
And
Or
this
no.
budget is
No,
on,
down 13%.
Oh, down 13%, I'm sorry.
Down, yeah.
I'm sorry, Sandy?
so this budget also is on the sewer rate. So it's not the 2 departments, it's also the debt.
Okay, all right, so this is covered by the sewer, the sewer user fee.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, are there any other questions concerning this budget? All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye, Karen Schmidt is an aye, Kara is an aye, Mike Jerome is an aye, Susan Lombardi is an aye, and Bill Drusine is an aye. That is unanimous. And I think that's it for this evening, correct?
That is
Motion
correct.
adjourned.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
A motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor signify in the usual manner.
Aye.
Jeff Noble's an aye, Karen Schmidt's an aye, Kara Smith's an aye, Mike Jerome's an aye, Susan, she's out of here, he's an aye, Bill Drusine is an aye. Thank you very much, everyone. My battery's about to die, so have a good evening. We will indeed have another meeting next Wednesday. Hopefully, we'll be able to wrap it up and I can write my report. All right, we will definitely be reviewing the police budget and the school budget next
In a
week.
minute.
And we'll go over the minutes that we waived this week. Thank you very much. It was good to see you, Susan
Thank you.
and Sandy. Thank you very much.
Bye, thank you.